Hi, I'm Lauren Hamilton, accountant for therapists. Today we're going to talk about sales tax and when you should be aware of it and what is that actually and all the details that go into sales tax. So let's jump into it. So for most therapists, sales tax is really not going to be an issue for you because you're not selling a physical item. But if you are somebody who maybe wrote a book or workbook or sells, a product outside of your therapy sessions, that's when you might want to look into your state and look at the sales tax rules and regulations on those items. So let's talk about what is sales tax actually. So sales tax is tax that's collected from customers when you sell a certain product. So you don't keep that tax that you have collected. You actually have to then remit it to the state or to the jurisdiction that you collected it for. So really, it's a pass-through tax, is kind of how to think about it. And sales tax has nothing to do with income. It's solely on the items that you are selling to an end user. So if you think about it, like when you go to the grocery store or if you go to Target or, something like that, you are purchasing items that the store is charging you sales tax for. The store does not keep that sales tax for themselves. They then submit it to the state as a sales tax payment. Essentially, that would be the same thing for you if you are selling, like I said, a book or a workbook or any other type of product that you have developed and are selling to an end user, such as your client. So, I also mentioned that sales tax does not apply to every therapist, and that will be true if you are only conducting therapy sessions or clinical services or insurance reimbursements, private pay fees, anything like that. That is exempt from sales tax. So professional services like that are exempt from sales tax. In the great country of America, states have different rules for, all the states have different rules for sales tax. So if you sell something in South Carolina, let's say that's where I am currently, the rules in Tennessee are not going to be the same. So it really depends on where that product is being sold from and who the user is going to be. So, going back to our workbook example, if you created a workbook and people can buy that from your store online, then your system would have to calculate where the end user is located. So, for our example, let's say you're based in South Carolina and somebody in Tennessee bought your workbook, then the person in Tennessee would be charged sales tax on the purchase of the workbook, but you may have to remit the tax to Tennessee based on Tennessee's rules on sales tax. You could also remit it to South Carolina, being that you're the state that you sold it from. The state that you're in may also have claim on that sales tax. So again, this is not a video to give you all of the information about every state. It's just so that way that you are aware if you are selling a product like this, you really want to look into your state and what the rules and regulations are in that state. So that way you can collect that and remit it in the right way. So as I mentioned, each state is going to dictate what is taxable and how you need to register. Some states require you to register for a retail license. And even though you don't have like an actual retail store or you're not, selling things in a store location, it's just called a retail license because you are selling a product to an end user. The state is also going to determine how often you need to file. You could be an annual filer, you could be a quarterly or a monthly filer. And depending on the state's due dates with those frequencies, that's also going to be determined by the state. Most states, at least that I'm aware of, the sales tax is due on the 20th of the month, but depending again on the state, that could be a different date. So you also want to make sure that you understand that for the state that you're filing in. Let's talk about when you create a sales tax obligation. So a lot of states are going to care about where you are located, where your customer is located, And if you have a business presence in that state, usually you will not, because your presence is going to be in your home state or where you actively have your business. And whether the product is going to be taxable there, either in your home state or the place that it is being sent to. So, some steps to take if you did determine that your product is taxed by the state with sales tax. You want to determine the registration for that state. So, usually that is through the Department of Revenue, your state's Department of Revenue. So, you can just Google that. Another really helpful website is TaxJar. It's just taxjar.com. They have no affiliation, no sponsorship. It's actually a tool that I like to use myself. It's, a free resource. So if you go to taxjar.com, you can find your state and it will give you the information that you would need to register and how, or where to register, what website to go to with your state. It's also going to tell you the tax rate that you would need to charge. Some states, like the state of Washington, I know, for example, they have a state rate, and then they also have a city rate, and they could even have a county rate. So it just depends on where you are in that state to determine what your actual tax rate will be. Whereas if you are in the state of New Jersey, it is a flat state rate. You don't have any other rates no matter where you are in the state of New Jersey. So again, it can be complicated depending on what state you are in. So that's where it's helpful to have those resources like TaxJar to kind of help show you, everything that you need to be aware of there. The other major piece to that is once you know that you should be charging sales tax, is getting your sales system set up for that and making sure that it is calculating the correct tax on the item as it's being sold and that it is recording that for you. A lot of sales systems should show you a sales summary where it collected the gross amount and then what the sales tax amount was and then what your net sales amount should be. So that way you know exactly what portion of the sales that were collected are slotted for sales tax. Another important thing to remember about sales tax is if you are registered and if you do remit sales tax returns and you have a month where you didn't have any sales, you are still required to file a zero due return. If you do not file that return with zero due, you will be assessed a penalty, and then interest could also be assessed on that late fee. So just keep that in mind that if you are filing sales tax returns, but you have a month where you didn't have any sales and nothing to remit, then you still need to file a zero due return. That is a big thing that I see all the time, not just with therapists, but with other businesses in my accounting history. But do not forget to file that zero due return. Otherwise, you could be looking at some fees that you won't be able to have abated because you technically should have known better, according to the state. So let's talk about just some common sales tax mistakes that I see a lot of the time are people that are assuming that platforms are handling everything. Just because the platform is collecting the sales tax on your behalf, that does not mean that they are filing the sales tax for you and remitting it to the state. That is a big mistake where you think everything is being handled for you when that is definitely not the case. You are collecting sales tax and not registering it. So you may be collecting it, but you are not remitting or submitting it to the state. That is also a big mistake. That is not your money to keep. That is the state's money to keep. And I've gone through a couple of sales tax audits. They are not fun, and you really want to make sure that you're doing these steps in the right process to not have a sales tax audit. Another major thing, which I just discussed in the previous section, was not filing a zero due return. Again, please file your zero due returns. I know it doesn't make sense, but the state wants to know that there is nothing due to them for that time period. The other common mistake I see is mixing sales tax into income. So on your income statement, you should not have any sales tax on that income statement or profit and loss statement. All of the sales tax that you collect should be going to a liability account because that is not yours to keep. That is yours to collect and then to pay back out. So again, it is a cash in and a cash out transaction. You are strictly the middleman when it comes to sales tax. The sales tax that you do collect, that should not be in any income account. And then when you pay it out of your account, that should not be in any expense account. That is solely a liability account where the money will come in and the money will go out. So keep that in mind too when you're doing that on your accounting. The other major thing is waiting till the very last minute to get that filed. So if you know that you're filing on, a quarterly or monthly frequency, set up a calendar reminder to file that return. Again, if filing late could cost you some penalties and interest there. Again, sales tax is a big thing for most states, especially states that do not have income tax. Sales tax is one of the major ways that the state earns revenue. They are very serious about it. It's something that you should be very compliant with. And like I said, audits can be done on sales tax. And if it's not done correctly, then there can be, some ramifications for that. That's not to scare you or to frighten you. I just want to get my point across of the severity of a sales tax situation. Because like I said, the state takes it seriously, and so you should also take it seriously. So what are some things that can make it easier to collect sales tax and to keep everything organized? So obviously having an e-commerce platform that's going to have those tax settings available to you, whether that's something like Squarespace or, a different website platform that has the capability of being able to have those sales tax functions. You really want to make sure that your website platform is capable of collecting the sales tax in the proper way. Again, mentioning the liability account, creating that sales tax liability account in your accounting system to make sure that that money is coming in and going out. When you look at that at the end of the month or after you have made your sales tax payment, that account should be zero because again, it is a money in, money out situation. You may also want to look into an accounting system that's going to track sales tax for you. For instance, QuickBooks has a very robust system for organizing sales tax. You get a very nice, clean sales tax liability report. So that way, when you go to file your sales tax, you can just run that one report and you know exactly what you need to put into the return when you go to file it. Another just helpful tip is if you feel completely out of your element on this, please reach out for help, whether that's through me or through somebody else who has sales tax experience. Please get the help that you need because like I said, it really can be a tricky situation, especially like I said, because most states do have different reporting requirements and charging requirements. So really making sure that you understand all of those pieces of it and making sure that your registration is correct is really going to be the main thing. So again, I do want to get my point across that it is a very real and serious thing, but this is not, people do this every day. It is not something that is super complicated to where if you had it set up and were shown how to do it, it's something that, I have every ounce of belief that you would be able to do on your own. It's just the part of you need to stay on top of it. You need to make sure that your payments are correct and that they're being sent to the state at the right time and by the right time. So really just wanting to give you general knowledge about this, and if you do have more specific questions, please reach out to somebody about those because you want to make sure that you get those right. Otherwise it could be a real headache to try to go back and get those correct. Another great resource is, and like I said too, is your Department of Revenue website. Like I said, every state has either a Department of Revenue or a Department of Treasury, somebody who is making those rules and regulations. And, they deal with business owners every day that have more complicated sales tax situations than I'm sure what, you would probably ever get into. And so they are there to also answer questions. So you can even call the Department of Revenue and ask them for guidance on that, which, again, a lot of us think of calling the Department of Revenue might be a scary thing, but they really are there to help make sure that you understand the rules and regulations. That's what they're, that's their job. All that to say, if you are confused or overwhelmed, please reach out for help on that, because I would really hate to see it get set up wrong and then you go through an audit and it's something that could have been a very easy fix in the beginning. So, as we kind of wrap up this section and talking about sales tax, again, sales tax is something that is just assessed on products that you're selling to an end user. It's not anything related to your sessions, therapy calls, anything like that, any of your services that you are conducting. It's really just the products. If you created a workbook, a book, any sort of therapy tool that you then resell to an end user, that is where you're going to want to look into the sales tax situation for your state. Like I said, I have a lot of experience with sales tax, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to go through those with you and even help you get your sales tax set up to make sure that it is working in the right way from the beginning. If you found this video helpful, please like and share it. Sharing is caring, and we like to support other therapists in the space who might need to know this information as well. Until next time, be well.